In the year 2425, humanity had spread across the stars, carving colonies on distant planets and building massive stations in orbit around alien suns. Yet even in this age of technology and exploration, human emotions remained as unpredictable as ever. Among the vast colonies scattered across the Orion cluster, there was a small research outpost on the planet Lyria, 9, perched high in crystalline cliffs overlooking a turquoise ocean. It was here that Elias worked, a young scientist known for his intelligence and curiosity, but also for his quiet nature. Elias had always admired Lyra from afar. She was a fellow researcher, part of the same bioengineering team, with a sharp mind and a presence that drew attention wherever she went. Elias had spent months crafting a message, a letter that he could not bring himself to speak aloud. He poured into it all the respect, admiration, and subtle feelings he held for her. Not a word of impropriety, not a single remark that could embarrass her, only honest thoughts about her brilliance, courage, and the inspiration she brought to the team. He had placed the letter in her personal locker, carefully folded and marked with her name. He had hesitated a dozen times before finally leaving it, heart pounding each time he imagined her reading it. The office lights flickered softly, casting long shadows along the polished metal floors as he slipped out, pretending to attend to other duties. The next morning, the lab hummed with the usual sounds of scanners, incubators, and the soft murmur of researchers discussing data. Elias arrived early, as he often did, hoping to catch a glimpse of her reaction without being noticed. Lyra entered the lab with her usual grace, her eyes scanning the workstations, always seeking solutions to the complex problems they faced. Her focus was intense, but there was an ease to her movement, a quiet confidence that made her presence magnetic. Elias watched her approach her locker. She paused, her fingers brushing over the smooth surface, and then her eyes widened slightly as she discovered the envelope. She picked it up, holding it delicately as if it were made of fragile glass. Elias felt his stomach tighten. Her eyes scanned the note, and he could see her expression shift from curiosity to gentle amusement, and finally to a soft warmth that made his chest ache. Then, almost silently, she whispered, "So you do care about me." Her voice was soft but carried a weight that made Elias's heart leap. She did not laugh, nor did she scold him. There was no embarrassment, only acknowledgement. That single sentence, whispered in a quiet lab filled with the hum of machines, felt like the opening of a door into a world he had longed to enter. From that moment, Elias felt a change in the air. The laboratory, usually filled with sterile discussions of biochemistry and alien flora, seemed warmer, almost alive with possibility. Lyra turned slightly toward him, her eyes meeting his across the room, and in that glance, he saw an understanding that no words could fully capture. Over the next few days, their interactions shifted subtly. In meetings, Lyra would seek his opinion more often, sometimes pausing to ask, "What do you think, Elias?" Her questions were genuine, not formalities, and each time, Elias felt a surge of pride and connection. The other researchers noticed the change, though none could explain it. Some whispered that the energy around the lab seemed different, as if the very walls responded to the newfound bond between the two colleagues. One evening, as the twin suns of Lyria, 9 dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and violet, Elias found himself walking along the cliffside path near the outpost. He carried a small device, a holographic projector, filled with data on the newly discovered Lyrian flora. He hoped to share it with Lyra, to combine their insights, and perhaps to create a moment of collaboration that felt personal as well as professional. He found her at the edge of the cliff, observing the ocean below. The waves sparkled under the fading sunlight, and the wind tugged gently at her hair. She turned as he approached, and her expression softened further when she saw him. "I thought you might be here," she said, her voice carrying just above the wind. "I wanted to see the sunset before the labs closed. It's rare to get a moment like this." Elias held up the device. "I thought you might like to review this together. There's something unusual in the gene patterns of the new samples. It could change how we understand Lyria 9's ecosystem." Lyra smiled, the kind of smile that made Elias forget the weight of the galaxy outside the cliffside. "Let's see it," she said. For hours, they studied the data, their discussion flowing naturally between technical analysis and shared excitement. They speculated about the possibilities, tested theories, and even laughed at the occasional error in the initial projections. As the stars began to appear one by one in the violet sky, their focus remained entirely on the work, and on the subtle awareness of each other's presence. It was in these quiet, collaborative moments that Elias realized why humanity had spread to the stars. Not for conquest, nor for resources alone, but for connection. The drive to explore, to understand, and to share knowledge was fundamentally human. In Lyra's presence, he felt that truth more acutely than ever. Later, back at the lab, as the outpost's artificial lights bathed the workstations in a calm glow, Lyra lingered near his desk. "I want to thank you," she said softly, her eyes steady on his. "Not just for the letter, but for showing me that someone truly values my work, and me. It's rare to find that, even here." Elias's heart raced, and he found himself searching for words that could convey all the gratitude, admiration, and hope he felt. I only wanted you to know," he said finally, "that your efforts matter. That you matter." She nodded, a subtle warmth in her eyes. "I do understand. And it means more than you can imagine." The days that followed were filled with small but meaningful moments. Shared experiments, quiet conversations about data and discoveries, and the occasional evening walk along the cliffs. The colony itself was bustling, with alien wildlife being catalogued, energy fields being stabilized, and distant communications with other settlements demanding attention. Yet amid the chaos, a bond formed, a quiet, steady connection that neither technology nor distance could disrupt. Elias began to notice more than her intellect. The way she listened with genuine interest, how her eyes lit up when she solved a difficult problem, the laughter she shared when mistakes turned into unexpected insights. Lyra, too, seemed to notice him more deeply, asking for his perspective in ways that went beyond professional necessity. They found themselves sharing personal stories of childhoods on distant planets, of dreams that spanned the stars, and of the challenges of living so far from Earth while still carrying its memory in their hearts. One day, during a routine survey of the coastal cliffs, they discovered something extraordinary. Beneath the waves, an unusual formation glowed faintly, a bioluminescent reef unlike any catalogued before. Their excitement was immediate, and together they designed a study to analyze its ecosystem. The discovery drew attention from the larger colony, marking their collaboration as significant and hinting at new possibilities for human understanding of alien worlds. Yet, amid these grand discoveries, the small gestures, the shared smiles, the quiet acknowledgments, the whispered understanding, remained the most profound. Elias realized that human courage, curiosity, and kindness were the true measures of heroism. Not feats of war or conquest, but the courage to connect, to understand, and to care. And so, under the twin suns of Lyria, 9, amid the hum of machines and the glow of alien oceans, a story quietly began. A story of two minds meeting across the expanse of space and a shared respect and admiration that promised to grow. Elias and Lyra were no longer just colleagues, they were explorers of knowledge, of the unknown, and of the human heart itself. The galaxy stretched infinitely before them, full of mysteries waiting to be uncovered. But for now, Elias understood that even in the vastness of space, the simplest act of understanding and acknowledgement could illuminate more than any star. The first chapter of their journey had begun, not with battles or cosmic events, but with a letter, a whisper, and the courage to care. And in the heart of that outpost on Lyria, 9, amidst alien wonders and human ingenuity, the promise of discovery, both scientific and personal, shone brighter than any distant sun. The glow of the bioluminescent reef beneath the waves had captivated Elias and Lyra, and they quickly realized that it could hold secrets about Lyria 9's ecosystem that no human had ever seen. The colony's scanners could only capture the surface details, so the two decided to venture closer, preparing specialized underwater drones and sensors to map and analyze the reef. Their goal was not only scientific discovery but also understanding how such unique life could survive on a planet so far from the sun. The preparation took days. Elias and Lyra coordinated with the colony engineers to modify the drones, equipping them with sensitive environmental sensors and microscopic sampling tools. Each adjustment was made with care, ensuring that the reef's delicate structures would not be harmed. While working together, their discussions flowed between technical details and moments of shared laughter. Every new idea sparked mutual excitement, and every challenge strengthened their trust. Finally, the day came to deploy the drones. Elias and Lyra stood at the edge of the observation platform, overlooking the sparkling turquoise waters. The twin suns of Lyria, 9, were just rising, casting a golden shimmer across the ocean. The reef below seemed to pulse faintly, almost as if it were alive in response to their presence. Lyra handed Elias the primary control module. "Ready?" she asked, her eyes bright with anticipation. Elias nodded. "Let's see what secrets you hold." The drones descended silently, their lights piercing the deep waters. The screens in the observation room showed streams of footage, displaying intricate coral-like structures, small glowing organisms, and patterns that seemed to form a natural rhythm. Both Elias and Lyra leaned closer, fascinated by the subtle interactions among the reef's inhabitants. "This is incredible," Lyra whispered. "Look at how these organisms feed off the bioluminescence. It's a cycle I've never seen before." Elias adjusted the drone's sensors, analyzing chemical readings. "The energy here is unlike anything we've recorded. It's as if the reef itself is generating life-supporting fields." Hours passed as they explored every nook of the reef. Then, suddenly, one of the drones picked up an unusual pattern deeper in the water. A large formation glimmered in a series of rapid pulses, almost like a signal. Elias's fingers flew across the controls. This doesn't look natural. It's too regular." Lyra leaned in, her excitement mingled with concern. Could it be some kind of communication? Or maybe a new species? They decided to investigate further. Using a specialized probe, they navigated closer to the glowing formation. As the drone approached, they realized it was a massive living structure, almost temple-like, with patterns that seemed to respond to their movements. Every pulse of light coincided with subtle changes in the water currents and chemical composition. "This reef is not just a habitat," Elias said, voice filled with awe. "It's almost intelligent." Lyra's eyes widened. "You mean, it's reacting to us?" Before Elias could answer, the reef pulsed again, brighter this time. Tiny organisms swirled around in intricate dances, forming shapes that resembled abstract symbols. Both of them held their breath, realizing that this could be a form of communication. Humanity had never encountered anything like this outside of Earth, and here it was on a distant world, waiting for discovery. Excitement coursed through them, but so did caution. Elias instructed the drones to remain at a safe distance while they collected chemical and light frequency data. "We need to understand how it works before we do anything more," he said. Lyra nodded, though her mind raced with possibilities. If this reef is intelligent, it could redefine everything we know about life in the galaxy. The data they collected revealed something remarkable. The reef emitted subtle electromagnetic pulses that seemed to organize the behavior of smaller organisms. It could, in a way, influence its environment consciously, adapting to changes in water currents, light exposure, and even the presence of the drones. It was as if the reef was a single entity, made of countless individual creatures, working in perfect harmony. Elias and Lyra spent days analyzing the readings, often staying late into the night. They built models, simulated interactions, and debated interpretations. Their collaboration became a dance of intellect and intuition, each pushing the other to explore ideas further. The reef's intelligence became a puzzle they were determined to solve. One evening, after a long day of study, Lyra suggested a break. "Let's go to the cliffs," she said. "The reef will still be here, but we could use some fresh air." Elias agreed, and together they walked along the sparkling turquoise waters, the sky turning from gold to deep violet as the sun set. They spoke of the reef, of possible origins, and of what it meant for humanity's understanding of alien life. Then Lyra turned to him, a soft smile on her face. "You know," she said quietly, "it's moments like these that make all the effort worth it. Not just the discoveries, but sharing them with someone who understands." Elias's heart swelled. He nodded, searching for the right words. "I feel the same. Working with you, it's more than science. It's seeing the universe differently." Their bond, formed initially through a letter and quiet admiration, had grown into a partnership rooted in respect, trust, and shared curiosity. Each new discovery strengthened not only their scientific knowledge but also the connection that had begun months earlier with a whispered acknowledgement. But the reef still held mysteries. One night, as they reviewed new footage, they noticed that the light patterns had become more complex. Symbols appeared in sequences, as if forming a language. The reef was communicating, or at least signaling, but in a way that humans had never encountered. Elias leaned back, rubbing his temples. "We need to decode this. If it's a language, it could take years to understand, but we might be the first humans to even recognize it." Lyra's eyes gleamed with determination. "Then we start now. Every pattern, every pulse, we record it, analyze it, and see if we can find consistency. We can do this together." Days turned into weeks. Their study of the reef consumed their time and energy, but it also brought moments of wonder. They discovered new species, unseen on any other planet, and documented how the reef seemed to nurture them. Some organisms even adapted to their equipment, displaying curiosity similar to their own. Elias and Lyra realized they were not only observers but participants in an ecosystem that challenged the very definition of life. During one late-night observation, a sudden event surprised them. The reef pulsed with extraordinary intensity, sending ripples across the water and causing their instruments to register unusual energy spikes. Small creatures swirled in frantic patterns, and a part of the reef appeared to extend toward the surface, as if inviting interaction. Lyra gasped. It's responding to us directly. This is unprecedented." Elias's mind raced. "We need to record everything, but carefully. One wrong move, and we could disrupt it." They watched in awe as the reef continued to react, patterns forming in ways that seemed purposeful. For the first time, Elias felt a profound sense of humility. Humanity had crossed the stars, yet here, on a distant world, a single organism reminded them that intelligence could take forms far beyond their imagination. Through this experience, Elias and Lyra grew closer, not just as colleagues, but as companions navigating the unknown together. Their bond was forged in curiosity, mutual respect, and the shared thrill of discovery. And yet, the reef hinted at even greater secrets, ones that could challenge human understanding and demand courage, ingenuity, and heart. As they finally left the observation station, the twin suns setting behind them, Elias realized that the journey had only begun. Lyra, 9 had opened a door to mysteries beyond any human frontier, and the reef, glowing softly beneath the waves, held the promise of knowledge and wonder that could change everything. Elias glanced at Lyra, feeling gratitude for her presence, her intellect, and her unwavering curiosity. In a galaxy filled with stars, new worlds, and challenges, he knew that together they could face whatever the universe revealed next. And the reef pulsed on, silent yet aware, a living testament to the resilience and ingenuity of life itself, waiting for humans to truly understand. Lyra, 9 had always been known for its beautiful yet unpredictable weather. The twin suns created rapid temperature shifts, and the ocean currents, powered by the planet's unique gravitational pull, could turn from calm to violent in minutes. Elias and Lyra had grown accustomed to the rhythms of their outpost, but nothing had prepared them for the storm that now approached. The morning began like any other, with golden sunlight reflecting off the turquoise ocean. The reef's glow beneath the waves pulsed faintly, almost as if it were signaling them to be careful. Elias was monitoring the data feeds while Lyra prepared drones for a new round of observations. "Do you feel that?" Lyra asked, pausing mid-step. Elias glanced at the atmospheric readings. The wind speed is rising unusually fast. This is more than a typical shift. By noon, dark clouds had begun to gather, swirling in patterns that mirrored the reef's pulsing lights. The colony's sensors registered a storm system forming rapidly over the ocean. The winds picked up, and the first heavy drops of rain splashed against the observation platform. "We need to secure the drones and equipment," Elias said urgently. "If the storm hits fully, it could damage everything we've collected." Lyra nodded, working quickly alongside him. They tied down the drones, disconnected sensitive sensors, and double-checked the communication lines. Despite the tension, they moved efficiently, each trusting the other completely. As the storm intensified, the outpost began to shake with strong gusts of wind. Thunder roared in the distance, though it sounded different from Earth storms, deeper, resonating through the metallic cliffs and the ocean below. Elias watched the data streams from the reef, noticing that the bioluminescent pulses became irregular, almost frantic. "It's reacting to the storm," Lyra said, her voice filled with concern. "I think it senses danger. The reef might be trying to protect itself." Elias nodded. "We need to understand its response, but we also need to stay safe. The water levels could rise quickly." As the first wave of the storm hit, strong gusts tore across the cliffs, and rain lashed against their suits. Elias and Lyra struggled to maintain their balance while keeping their communication modules functional. The wind carried an electric charge that tingled through the metal of the observation platform. Suddenly, a massive wave surged from the ocean, driven by the storm's energy. It crashed against the cliffs, sending spray into the air and shaking the outpost violently. Instruments went offline temporarily, and alarms blared across the laboratory. Elias and Lyra held onto the railing, feeling the raw power of Lyrian IX's forces. "This is worse than I imagined," Elias shouted over the roar. "We need to retreat to the inner lab." They ran through the storm, slipping on wet metal floors, and made it to the reinforced section of the outpost. Inside, the walls vibrated as the storm raged outside. Lightning illuminated the lab in brief, blinding flashes. Lyra immediately began checking the integrity of the drone's data. "We may have lost some readings, but the main sequences are still intact," she said. Relief flashed across her face. "The reef signals are still being transmitted. Somehow, it's surviving this." Elias stared at the monitors, fascinated despite the danger. The reef's pulses had shifted rhythmically with the storm, almost as if it were using its energy to stabilize its environment. "It's incredible," he said. "Even under extreme conditions, it adapts. It's showing resilience far beyond what we expected." The storm continued for hours. Waves crashed with relentless force, winds tore at the outpost, and rain hammered the reinforced metal roof. The twin suns, hidden behind dark clouds, left the world in a strange, dim light. Yet through it all, Elias and Lyra worked side by side, monitoring the reef and ensuring the colony's systems remained operational. By evening, the storm reached its peak. The ocean swelled, and an enormous wave threatened the lower sections of the outpost. Emergency protocols activated automatically, but the two researchers realized the reef was somehow amplifying its protective signals. The bioluminescent pulses intensified, and smaller reef organisms formed clusters that seemed to brace against the water's force. Lyra's eyes widened in awe. "It's like it's shielding itself, and maybe even the nearby waters." Elias nodded, taking notes as fast as he could. "This is a level of coordination we didn't anticipate. It's almost as if the reef understands the physics of its environment better than we do." Suddenly, a secondary alert flashed on the main console. A small section of the cliffs showed signs of structural stress. The colony engineers would need to reinforce them immediately after the storm, but in the moment, Elias and Lyra focused on the reef. They had to ensure that their study wasn't lost to the forces of nature. Hours passed, and gradually, the storm began to lose its strength. The wind slowed, the rain lessened, and the waves started to calm. When the storm finally subsided, Elias and Lyra ventured outside to assess the aftermath. The observation platform was battered but intact. Debris floated across the turquoise waters, but the reef beneath the surface remained luminous, its pulse steady once more. "It survived," Lyra said, her voice filled with amazement. "It not only survived, it adapted, protected itself, and maintained its structure. This is unprecedented." Elias smiled, though exhausted. "Humanity has faced challenges like this too. We endure storms, adapt, rebuild. Perhaps that's why we feel a connection to this reef, it mirrors our resilience." Over the next days, the pair began detailed analysis of the storm's impact on the reef. They discovered that its adaptive mechanisms were far more sophisticated than initially believed. The pulses were not random, they formed patterns that optimized the reef's energy distribution, stabilized its structure, and even guided smaller organisms to safer positions. Lyra was fascinated. "It's as if it has a survival strategy encoded in every element of its structure. This reef is teaching us about resilience, adaptation, and intelligence in a way no simulation ever could." Elias nodded. "And it's showing us the importance of collaboration. Look at how it organizes itself. Each organism plays a role, yet the entire system functions as one. Humanity could learn much from this." Their research drew attention from the colony leadership. Scientists from other disciplines requested access to their data, eager to study the reef's response to extreme conditions. The discovery became a turning point, highlighting human ingenuity and the potential for learning from alien ecosystems. Amid the excitement, Elias and Lyra continued their quiet partnership. They spent evenings reviewing data together, discussing the patterns, and planning the next phase of research. Their connection had deepened, rooted not only in admiration and trust but in the shared experience of witnessing something extraordinary and surviving a test of nature's power. One night, as the twin moons rose above the cliffs, Lyra spoke softly, "I think the reef trusts us in some way. It revealed itself, adapted to survive, and now it continues to let us observe. We have a responsibility to respect it." Elias looked at her, inspired by her words. "We do. And that responsibility is what makes this adventure meaningful. It's not just discovery, it's stewardship, care, and understanding." The reef pulsed gently beneath the waves, almost as if acknowledging their commitment. It had survived the storm, but it had also revealed something more profound. The true measure of intelligence might not lie only in technological capability, but in the ability to adapt, survive, and work in harmony with one's environment. For Elias and Lyra, the storm had been a test, not only of the reef's resilience but of their own courage, creativity, and partnership. It had strengthened their resolve to explore further, to decode the reef's patterns, and to uncover the mysteries of Lyra 9 in ways that could inspire humanity across the stars. And as the colony resumed normal operations, and the twin suns rose again, they stood together on the cliffs, gazing at the calm turquoise waters, knowing that this planet, and this remarkable reef, held challenges and wonders that only human courage, curiosity, and collaboration could hope to fully understand. After the storm, Lyra 9 seemed to breathe more quietly, as if the planet itself was recovering. The turquoise ocean reflected calm skies, and the cliffs shimmered in the soft light of the twin suns. Elias and Lyra returned to their work with renewed energy, determined to decode the reef's complex patterns. They knew the storm had revealed new behaviors, but the most important secrets were still hidden beneath the waves. For days, they analyzed the light sequences and chemical data collected from the reef. Each pulse, each fluctuation, seemed intentional. It was as if the reef had a rhythm, a language, a logic they had not yet understood. Small clusters of organisms coordinated with astonishing precision, creating structures that could withstand shifting currents and predatory species. Elias marveled at the intelligence embedded in this living system. "I think it's trying to communicate," Lyra said one evening, her eyes fixed on the holographic display. "The pulses form sequences that repeat, almost like sentences. It may not be a language like ours, but it is structured. Elias leaned closer, adjusting the data filters. If we can identify patterns and match them with environmental responses, we might be able to interpret what it's telling us. They devised a method to map the pulses against changes in water currents, temperature, and nearby life. Slowly, a pattern emerged. Certain sequences corresponded to times of growth, defense, and movement of smaller reef organisms. It was a living instruction manual, written in light. As they delved deeper, they noticed something extraordinary. The reef seemed to contain an internal energy network, almost like a biological circuitry, which distributed resources efficiently and predicted environmental shifts. Elias called it a sentient ecosystem. Lyra, ever practical, noted that it could serve as a model for sustainable colonies or artificial ecosystems on other planets. Their collaboration became more intense. Each day, they shared insights, hypothesized mechanisms, and tested new ideas with drones and sensors. They discovered new species that thrived only in specific areas of the reef, each adapted to the unique energy fields emitted by the reef's pulsing network. Some creatures acted as messengers, carrying information across the reef through subtle bioluminescent flashes. "This is more than a discovery," Lyra said quietly one night, as they reviewed the latest sequences. "It's a new way to understand life. This reef operates on principles that could inspire human science, engineering, even society itself." Elias smiled, feeling a deep admiration not just for the reef but for Lyra's vision. "We're witnessing the evolution of intelligence in a form we never imagined. Humanity can learn from this, if we respect it." Their work drew attention beyond the outpost. Scientists and engineers from other colonies requested data and collaboration. The reef's resilience and structure offered insights into sustainable energy, resource management, and ecosystem design. Elias and Lyra realized that their discovery could influence human expansion into space in ways far more profound than they had first imagined. But the reef still held deeper secrets. One day, while analyzing the newest pulse sequences, Lyra noticed a distinct pattern that stood out from the others. It was not related to environmental adaptation or organism coordination. This sequence seemed deliberate, almost as if it were sending a message. "Elias, look at this," she said, pointing at the display. "It's not just survival behavior. It's something else. Maybe it's a signal, intended for us or any intelligent species that observes it." Elias's heart raced. A message? From the reef? Let's decode it carefully. Every sequence, every pulse could hold meaning. They began a careful mapping process, comparing the reef's light sequences with their own communications. Slowly, a recognizable structure emerged. The sequences resembled basic logic patterns: cause and effect, problem and solution. The reef was not just alive, it was reasoning. Excitement and awe filled the laboratory. Elias and Lyra realized that they were on the verge of understanding a new form of intelligence. This was not human or animal intelligence as they knew it, it was collective, distributed, adaptive, and profound. Over the next weeks, they developed a model to interact with the reef. Using controlled light pulses, they sent simple signals into the water, observing how the reef responded. To their astonishment, the reef reacted predictably, modifying its pulses and adjusting its energy fields to mirror their signals. It was learning, adapting, and responding, a true conversation across species. "This is incredible," Lyra said, her eyes shining. "We're communicating with an entire ecosystem. We've never seen anything like this." Elias nodded, equally amazed. "It's proof that intelligence takes many forms. Humanity may be the first to realize it here, but life is capable of far more than we imagined." Their interactions with the reef became more sophisticated. They experimented with sequences that mimicked patterns of growth, reproduction, and energy management. The reef responded in ways that optimized its structure, shared resources more efficiently, and even guided the movement of smaller organisms to safety. It was teaching them as much as they were learning from it. One evening, while observing the reef from the cliffs, Lyra spoke softly. Elias, do you realize what this means? Humanity could design colonies inspired by the reef. Systems that adapt, communicate, and thrive without constant oversight. This could change everything. Elias looked out over the calm waters, reflecting on the storm and the reef's resilience. It's a lesson in collaboration, not just with other humans, but with life itself. The reef shows us that intelligence, care, and adaptation are all connected. As they continued their study, new challenges emerged. Some sequences from the reef were more complex than anything they had encountered. Certain pulses seemed to anticipate environmental changes before they occurred. Elias speculated that the reef possessed a predictive mechanism, a form of intuition based on its collective experience. Lyra observed this closely. It's almost like memory and foresight combined. The reef stores information across generations of organisms and uses it to adapt instantly. We could learn a great deal about sustainable planning from this. Their work attracted more researchers, but Elias and Lyra remained the primary observers. They maintained careful control, ensuring that human interference did not disrupt the reef's natural processes. They were mindful of the responsibility that came with understanding a sentient ecosystem. One day, the reef displayed an unprecedented response. A section of the formation extended upward, creating a tower-like structure that emitted a steady pulse, different from any pattern before. Elias and Lyra studied it with the drones, recording every movement. It's constructing something, Elias said in awe. Not just adapting, it's creating. Lyra nodded, her excitement tempered by respect. It's expressing itself. This is beyond survival. This is art, architecture, intelligence. The realization was profound. Humanity had discovered a new form of life that was not only intelligent but capable of creative expression. The reef's pulse sequences, its structures, and its coordination were a testament to the potential of life in the universe. Elias and Lyra documented everything meticulously, understanding that their work could inspire generations of explorers, scientists, and thinkers. The reef had become more than a study subject, it was a teacher, a partner, and a symbol of what humanity could aspire to understand and respect. As they concluded another long day of observation, Elias turned to Lyra. We came here to study, but we're learning about ourselves too. The reef is showing us what intelligence, resilience, and cooperation truly mean. Lyra smiled. And it reminds us why humans continue to explore the stars. We seek knowledge, connection, and understanding. That drive is what makes us extraordinary. The twin suns of Lyria, 9 set behind the cliffs, casting a golden glow over the turquoise ocean. Beneath the surface, the reef pulsed gently, a living symphony of light and life, waiting to share its next secret. Elias and Lyra knew that they were only at the beginning of the reef's lessons, and that the future held discoveries that could redefine humanity's place in the galaxy. And in that quiet, luminous moment, they understood something profound. The true strength of humanity lay not in conquest or technology alone, but in curiosity, respect, and the courage to learn from life in all its extraordinary forms. Months had passed since Elias and Lyra first discovered the reef on Lyria, 9. What had begun as a scientific curiosity had grown into a profound partnership between humans and an extraordinary ecosystem. The reef had revealed layers of intelligence, adaptability, and creativity far beyond anything humanity had known, and the two researchers had become pioneers in understanding it. Despite the distance from other colonies, word of their work had spread. Communications from Earth and nearby settlements frequently requested updates, hoping to learn from the lessons of this sentient reef. But for Elias and Lyra, the greatest discoveries were personal, rooted in the quiet moments spent observing, interpreting, and connecting with the living system before them. One morning, as the twin suns rose over the turquoise ocean, Elias noticed a change in the reef's behavior. The pulses were rhythmic and deliberate, different from the adaptive responses they had studied before. The light sequences formed a pattern, one that suggested intentional communication, not just instinctive adaptation. Lyra, look at this, he called, pointing at the holographic display. It's arranging itself, almost like it's signaling us. Lyra joined him, her eyes scanning the sequences. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "And precise. I think it's inviting us to understand something new." Over the next days, they focused all their attention on decoding the reef's message. Using controlled light pulses from their drones, they attempted to communicate, sending basic sequences of acknowledgement and questions. The reef responded consistently, forming patterns that mirrored and expanded on their signals. "It's a conversation," Elias said, his voice filled with awe. "We're communicating across species, across forms of life we never imagined. This is the first time humans have truly connected with a non-animal, non-human intelligence." Lyra smiled. "It's more than that. It's a lesson. The reef is showing us how life can cooperate, adapt, and flourish together. Humanity can learn from this. We can take these principles to new colonies, new worlds." Then, during one observation session, something unexpected occurred. A section of the reef began to rise, forming shapes that resembled a crystalline structure. It shimmered with the colors of the reef's pulses, casting reflections across the turquoise waters. The drones recorded the formation from every angle, and Elias realized that the reef was creating something deliberately, a gift, a message, and perhaps a blueprint for understanding life at a higher level. Lyra watched in amazement. "It's constructing knowledge. It wants us to learn. Look at the patterns, their engineering concepts, energy flow diagrams, even basic mathematical principles." Elias's mind raced. "It's giving us a guide. We can apply this to sustainable colonies, energy management, and even environmental restoration. The reef is teaching us in a way words cannot." For weeks, they studied the crystalline formation, translating the reef's patterns into usable data. Every pulse, every structural design, offered insights into efficiency, resilience, and cooperation. The reef's lessons extended beyond biology, touching on engineering, energy systems, and ecological harmony. Elias and Lyra realized that humanity could model future settlements on these principles, creating colonies that thrived in balance with their environment. Their connection with the reef became almost intuitive. They could predict its responses, anticipate its patterns, and adapt their own experiments to enhance mutual understanding. In turn, the reef seemed to recognize their efforts, refining its communications and expanding the scope of its teachings. One evening, after a long day of study, Elias and Lyra stood together on the cliffs overlooking the calm ocean. The twin suns set, casting golden reflections across the water and illuminating the reef's pulsing light beneath the surface. "You know," Lyra said softly, "we've learned more than we ever imagined. The reef has shown us courage, resilience, and cooperation. And it's reminded me why humans explore, why we venture into the unknown." Elias nodded. "It's not just about discovery. It's about understanding, respecting, and learning. The reef has given us a glimpse of what life could achieve when it works together. That's the true heroism of humanity, our ability to think, care, and adapt." As they spoke, the reef pulsed brighter, almost as if acknowledging their words. Small bioluminescent creatures swirled, forming shapes that mirrored the patterns they had been studying. It was a moment of harmony between human and alien intelligence, a connection that transcended language, species, and planet. Their work began to inspire others. Researchers across the Orion cluster implemented reef-inspired designs in new colonies, creating energy-efficient habitats and sustainable ecosystems. The reef's lessons became a symbol of human ingenuity, resilience, and the potential for cooperation with life in all its forms. Back at the outpost, Elias and Lyra continued their study, now focused on long-term sustainability. They monitored the reef's cycles, recorded new patterns, and refined the models that could guide human settlements. Their partnership had evolved into something extraordinary, a collaboration that blended intellect, respect, and shared vision. One quiet evening, as the twin moons rose over the cliffs, Lyra turned to Elias. "We came here hoping to study a reef," she said, "but we found a teacher, a guide, and a reminder of what humanity can be." Elias smiled, his gaze on the shimmering ocean below. We found that intelligence is not limited to humans. And that courage, curiosity, and respect are the forces that make exploration meaningful. The reef has shown us the best of what life can offer, and what humans can aspire to become. As the months passed, the reef continued to thrive. Its pulses became a regular part of the colony's rhythm, a constant reminder of the interconnectedness of life. Elias and Lyra documented every development, ensuring that humanity could carry these lessons across the stars. In the final analysis, they realized that the reef's greatest gift was not the data, not the structures, and not the patterns, but the inspiration it provided. It had demonstrated that intelligence, creativity, and cooperation could exist in forms beyond human imagination. And in doing so, it had reaffirmed the potential of humanity itself. One morning, the two researchers walked along the cliffside path, the twin suns rising over the horizon. The reef glowed beneath the waves, steady and enduring. Elias glanced at Lyra, feeling gratitude for her partnership, her insight, and her courage. "Do you think we'll ever fully understand it?" he asked. Lyra smiled softly. "Perhaps not fully. But we've learned enough to carry its lessons with us. That's what matters. Humanity will continue to explore, to adapt, and to thrive. And we'll take this knowledge wherever we go." The twin suns reflected on the calm waters, and the reef pulsed gently, a living testament to resilience, intelligence, and harmony. Elias and Lyra stood together, knowing that they had witnessed something extraordinary, a connection across species and worlds that embodied the best of humanity. In the end, the story of Lyra 9's reef was more than a scientific discovery. It was a celebration of curiosity, courage, and collaboration. It was a reminder that the greatest discoveries were not only about new planets or strange creatures but about the potential of humans to learn, grow, and connect with life in all its extraordinary forms. As they watched the reef shimmer beneath the surface, Elias and Lyra understood that the universe held endless mysteries, but with curiosity, courage, and respect, humanity could face them all. The reef had given them knowledge, inspiration, and hope, and they were determined to carry its lessons across the stars, guiding future generations toward a brighter, wiser, and more harmonious future. And so, on the cliffs of Lyra 9, with the turquoise ocean below and twin suns above, the journey of discovery concluded, not as an ending, but as a beginning. A beginning for humanity to embrace the challenges of the universe, guided by intelligence, empathy, and the enduring spirit of exploration.